Hello, comic book lovers, collectors, and aficionados. Vin Crew here with it's a top 50-ish list, and I'm going to do a few of these. And I wasn't going to do this, even though I've been tagged a couple, three times, I think now. Um, I was real hesitant on doing this. I've done these lists before a couple years back, and I know I bought a ton more since then. And to limit my out of 50,000 books approximately down to 50 books, it's kind of tough. And I really didn't want to do it, so I wasn't going to. But then I thought about it some more, and I thought, well, I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm going to do one is going to be this one, for example, is going to be oddball size books like Treasuries, pocket size, magazines, that sort of thing. And then another one will be Independence and Variants. I might split that into two. And then DC and Marvel, and I might split that into two. I mean, with 50,000 books, this gives me, and one of the reasons I'm doing it is that I can now have on video in 2020 my top 50 books in each of those things, so that if God forbid something happens, I can have this as backup to reinforce what I have for books if I ever have to file a claim. Hope that makes sense. Not only that, but I hope that this, out of all the different segments, that I can come up with some books that maybe you haven't seen before and can maybe put on your wish list. All right. So let's, I'm going to tag anybody who has not been tagged yet. Well, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to tag one person. I'm going to tag Master X. If you're watching, Zach, I noticed that on Instagram, you mentioned that you were jonesing possibly to do YouTube, get back on YouTube. And this might be a way. Crack the ice, made top 50 books, top 50 Spider-Man Spawn books. I don't know, top 50 bitches of the industry, whatever you'd like to do, that sort of thing. But let's see you get off the schneid a little bit, Zach, and do a bit. We all miss you, bud. We all miss you. But anyway, so here's an example. This is Treasury. This is the very large format. This is pocket size or digest form in the middle. Hence the word pocket. They could shove it in their back pocket was the the nickname associated with it. And then lastly, here's the magazine. And now I know some people don't like to collect anything but the strict comic book size, but I don't know. They all sorts of reasons why is they don't feel it's comic book. They don't think that it's hard to find supplies. Whatever the case is, that's great. Me personally, I've had no problems storing, finding supplies, any of that for any of these. So with that being said, let's get going. Here's a perfect example. Here is The Empire Strikes Back, and all of them in the three different formats, which is really cool. And what the significance of this is, it's the first appearance of Yoda and Boba Fett in comic book format. And please, this is only my opinion. And once again, I can't stress it enough. Don't take my word for it as gospel. If and anyone else, they mention something, if something piques your interest and you're interested in it and it costs some money to invest in it, I would highly suggest taking the 5-10 minutes and researching it yourself, just to make doubly sure. But this predates the Star Wars, what is it, 41, 42, something like that. I can't remember the issue number. And what's interesting is in the middle one, the pocket form, this was done before the release of the movie, and Star Wars wouldn't give Marvel what Yoda looked like, so Marvel had to kind of guess a little bit on what it was, and they made him purple in this one and then corrected him in these two. And so this one was printed beforehand, but now, if I'm not mistaken, and Andrew Osborne, I think it is, mentioned this for me, and I think if he watches it, he could let me know if I'm correct on this, is that even though this was printed first, this was released first. Kind of confusing, but yet, I think you understand the gist there. So, all right, let's get these out of here. Do a couple of more pocketbooks. I'm going to do them right here. This is One Punch Man. This is a manga style book, manga, and Japanese. And obviously, One Punch Man is definitely a manga verse character. And if you're interested, he has his own TV show, his own cartoon type show. And I think it's on Cartoon Network, maybe. I could be wrong there. But if you're interested, this, I believe, is his first appearance. All right. And then here we have Kung Fu Master Dragon's Fist by Jim Denny, who happens to be Denny O'Neil. And the significance of this, once again, this is just my opinion, okay, is that this is the first opinion of Richard Dragon and the Bronze Tiger. This was way before Richard Dragon Kung Fu Fighter. I shouldn't say way before, but predates Richard Dragon Kung Fu Fighter comic book #1. And okay, moving along. Thought I would do some DC books. Okay, why won't that focus? I'm going to pause you for a second here, figure out what the deal is. There we are. Sorry about that. And I also got to focus at the same point. All right, so this is Wonder Woman Haikyatsia. I always butcher this, but this is a very sought-after book by any Wonder Woman and or Batman collector. Hard to find, not an easy book. And there's multiple languages that you'll find, like on eBay and whatnot, and multiple printings and multiple formats of this book. It's a beautiful J.G. Jones book. And now some of these books that I show you are not going to be strictly because of first appearances or whatever. It could be because of covers. It could be because of being hard to find or sought after, that sort of a thing. This falls into that great cover, hard to find, relatively expensive. This can run $40-50. So, all right. The Hunger Dogs. Now, if anyone's followed my channel for a while, they know that I was really hitting Marvel, the original Marvel graphic novels. There were 75 of them, and I'll go, touch on those when I hit the Marvel section. But DC also dabbled into these, and these were basically made for the European market, because the European comics at that point were, the oversized newspaper size ones. I'll show you a couple of those. And they thought that they could parlay out that a little bit by maybe upgrading it with high, the nice cardboard things and the heavy paper stock and whatnot. But they were more successful in the U.S. than they were in the U.K. So, but anyway, this is of the 7 that DC did. This is by far the most coveted. It's the Hunger Dogs #1. It's like it was supposed to wrap up the New Gods series with Kirby, but of course DC wouldn't let it end. But this is how Kirby was hoping to end the New Gods saga. And I got to thank my friend Comic Hoarder 410. I believe he was the one who sent me this. So thank you, Matt. Batman, Son of the Demon. This is another book that you can make your own decision on, but as far as I'm concerned, this is the first appearance of Damian Wayne. Obviously, this book is not in canon, but if you look at like Comic Book Database or you look at Wiki and you look up Damian Wayne's first appearance, they'll all reference this book as his first appearance. And he's not named. He's like a weird kind of name that doesn't even have any vowels in it. But anyways, it's the same story where Batman gets raped by Talia and whatever. This is Miss #1, came out in the early 70s, and this was done by Gloria Steinem, as well as quite a few. And this was right when the women's lib movement was really in full gear. And what had happened during this time is that this was when Wonder Woman was depowered back in the 70s, late 60s maybe. And she was like a florist and a photographer and whatnot. And people hated it, especially the women. And Gloria wrote to DC and explained what she wanted to do. She wanted to do like a Wonder Woman for president kind of a thing. And DC said, hey, sure, why not? They really didn't care. They liked the idea of them getting some publicity, and this was it was so successful that this is actually what started to get the movement back for Wonder Woman to become what she originally was, get her powers back, get her costumes back, things of that nature. So for any Wonder Woman collector, this is a true key and relatively hard to get. Miss Magazine #1. And 1971 this came out in. Next one is Warrior Magazine. Now this, I'm going to throw this in as DC, but you know, it's more not DC, but this was this is done by my all-time favorite writer, Alan Moore, and this has the original excerpts of V for Vendetta in it, and this is what kicked the whole thing off, and it's by far probably one of the most coveted Alan Moore books out there. So Warrior #1, and it went on for quite a while with this, where they did the V for Vendetta, and also I almost forgot, first Miracle Man work on this book too. Well, so first V for Vendetta and first Miracle Man on this book here. All right. Moving on to some independents. Mouse Guard by David Peterson. This is an underground book. It's not underground, but it's an independent that really has a huge fan follow. In fact, I think this was optioned, but I think it fell through. And it was even before the option. This book was really a $30, $40 book. Then it jumped up to a $100 book. And you have to look for the first printings. And there is is it Olympia Press, I think? No, not Olympia. There's a self-published one of these that he did, just like with Cursed Pirate Girl, there's a self-published one. So you can look for that. But this is a first printing of Mouse Guard. I think this is by Olympia Printing. The Stuff of Legend. This is kind of like, I don't know, Narnia meets some kind of a boogeyman thing. This has been optioned, believe it or not, by Disney, but it's been optioned years and years and years ago, and I don't think anything's ever going to happen. I think they just didn't want it to have something happen. But it's kind of an adult-oriented thing. It's where this the toys for this boy come back that are kidnapped by the boogeyman, and they have to go back out and find, I can't remember which toy it was that he wanted back the most, but they go on this big adventure to get him back. And there is a free comic book day which predates this. I do have the free comic book day one of this too, but this is volume 1, first printing. American Splendor, #1, Alan, this is Crumb. Oh my God, what is his first name? Oh, I can't remember, but just a very well-known independent underground book, very happy to have this. Robert Crumb. Hell Rider #1. This is this is kind of a prototype of Ghost Rider. You see here's this person here. They call him Hell Rider instead of Ghost Rider, but he's got a motorcycle that shoots flames instead of a flaming motorcycle. And it was written with oh boy, I forget which one of the writers it was that did this. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, but it was the same writer that created, one of the co-creators of Ghost Rider that we know of now, the Blaze and Danny Ketch and those ones. So very cool to have this one. Love and Rockets #1, first printing. Another one of those classic, when you look at the independents of the 70s and 80s, this one is always coveted. The Hernandez brothers, and make sure this is a first printing when you pick it up. The Biologic Show. This is issue 0, and then there's a issue 1 and an issue 2. And if you like just off the wall, I mean the most craziest stories you will ever read in your life, this is right up your alley. And it's by Al Columbia. Rather hard to find. I know there were limited printings of these books, and for some reason, even though this predates issue number one goes for a little bit more than issue zero. I think that's a yellow cover, I think. But Biologic Show Zero by Al Columbia, and it's done by Fantagraphics. I, Lucifer, this was, I think the first 4 issues of this were printed as I, Lucifer. And what happened then is there was a kid that loved this, and it was about the poison elves. And his mom caught him or found his collection, and she didn't like the fact that it said Lucifer, even though it's not spelt the same way. So he wrote to the writer of this, the creator, Drew Hayes, I think it is, and explained this to him, and he ended up changing the title to Poison Elves. And I think that helped increase the sales. But Poison Owls ran for quite a few issues, and but this is the first appearance of them as I, Lucifer. Creepy number 1, first appearance of Uncle Creepy. Just one of those books like eerie, creepy, whatever, that was in that horror genre. Love the yellow cover. Mad number 166. This is the infamous middle finger cover. This, I believe, was recalled, or at least there was talks of it being recalled, and if that's the case, that was still enough to drive this book into a respectable amount of money. This is a $30-$40 book, and it's one of the few modern issues of Mad that's worth any money, and one of my favorite covers. Greed, this is number 6, and even though it has Flaming Carrot on the cover, this is known more for the first appearance of Milk and Cheese. I'm very happy to have that. And speaking of Flaming Carrot, I just showed this book not too long ago. This is Visions number 2. I wish I could someday get a Visions number 1, but Visions number 2 was limited to 2,000 or 3,000 copies, all hand signed by Burden, and this is the second appearance of Flaming Carrot. Visions 1 is his first appearance. Alien by Heavy Metal. This is the first appearance of Aliens, or this is the book people try to tell you is the first appearance of Aliens in written format, or in comic type format, even though this one comes out first. Before this one, this was a special, and then this one predated that. You can see right here the Alien illustrated short. This was the first time that they show up, and this is, I guess, like the first full-on thing of Aliens. I hope that makes sense. All right, and this is issue, I don't know what issue number this is. Number 26. Heavy Metal 26. Nexus number 1, Paul Rudd. Just one of those, another one of those books that if you're an independent collector, this needs to be in your collection. I know KMN Comics loves Nexus. And the first 3 or 4 issues, I think, were done in magazine size, and then they started going to comic book size. Psycho by Skywald Publishing, same people that did the Ghost Rider, or whatever that, Hell Rider magazine. Same people that it's produced by these same people. But this is the first appearance of Heap, not of the third Heap, second or third Heap, which is very similar to Man Thing and Swamp Thing, and I do have both of those. But this is just, if you like those swamp creatures, this could be right in your alley here. Yeah. Carpe Noctem number 1. This is the first appearance of Johnny, the homicidal maniac. He appears in comic format. And so, yeah, very happy to have that one. All right, here is Mr. A number 1. I believe this went 2 issues. This is written by Steve Ditko, and Mr. A is actually the precursor to The Question, who then became the precursor to Rorschach, and then Renee Montoya, and on and on. So this question type character is very prominent in comics, and it's Steve Ditko's person that he's a sleuth investigator, but he only believes in strictly right or wrong type of thing. Mr. A did, and it was for that time frame, which was this late 60s, early 70s, I believe. It was just a little bit too much at that point, and people just didn't click on to this character as well. And so then he created the question, which was a little bit more mainstream, and people really seemed to click onto that character. But Mr. A, the character, if you're a Ditko fan, this is one of the books you need. This is the first comic solely dedicated to this character. If you want his first appearance, that is in Wits End number 3. First appearance of Mr. A by Steve Ditko. Comic Crusader Storybook. This book here geeks me out like you wouldn't believe as a comic book enthusiast. This was written by Martin Grime or Green. I'm not know exactly how you pronounce that, but he is kind of known as the godfather of the East Coast Comic Con. Before that, there really wasn't any big comic conventions on the East Coast, Baltimore, New York, that sort of a thing. He helped get those started. He also was very instrumental in fanzines and underground books and things of that nature. And every single artist at that time had some kind of indebtedness to this guy for some way. And this book reflects that. This book has everybody in here from Ditko to Jim Starlin to Neil Adams, on and on and on. There's probably about 50 artists in here that contribute to this book. And it's just an incredible, incredible book. You just don't find many of these. Some people have gone as far as to call this, and I don't use this term, but a holy grail of underground and independent books. I think there was only like 500 of these, maybe 200 of these printed. And so it's extremely hard to find one. I don't even think there's any on eBay. But here's an example of some of the artwork. This is Sanat, I believe, doing Thunder Bunny and Surfer. All right. Next here, Vampirilla 1 by Harris. Or is it Warren? Warren Comics. Warren Publishing. Obviously, I think everybody who knows who Vampirilla is, this is her first appearances in this book right here. And then the other coveted book in that series is the last issue, 113, which was written by Harris. And this is a cover that was actually done. This is a reprint of issue number 68, that cover is. I got to get issue 68 still. Raphael, the one-shot, first appearance of Casey Jones. And this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is issue number 1, second print, not first print. Wish to God I had a first print, but this is beat up too. So, but anyway, Reed Fleming, World's Toughest Milkman. Lots of people like to pick this book up and think that they have a first printing of issue 1, which to me it took forever to find it, and it was more confusing to me than anybody. I think there are so many variants of these of this cover here, but the way you can tell for sure, and I've got a book here that will show. Here is, I hope you can tell. Says $2 right there, and then action is in yellow there. That, and you see here it's $2.95. You can see that, and the action is different. And some of them don't even have the action up on top here. So you have to look for the $2 and the action in yellow. That's the way you're going to know it's the first printing. And this is just a great character. And he ran in some different magazine comics and whatnot too. So, all right. Spiro. Oh my God, I forgot what number this is. 1117, I think. This is the first appearance. This came out in 1956, I believe. So this is early silver, late gold. This is the first appearance of the Smurfs in comics. Never thought I would ever own this book. Boy, I can't remember. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't remember what issue number this is, but this is the first appearance of Smurfs in comics, and this is the first cover appearance of the Smurfs right there. And I don't know if this... Oh my god, I can't read it. 1072. So this must be 1071 maybe? I don't know why I don't see the... Oh, this is 1958 too. 1958 this came out. Issue number... Oh my god. I don't know. But anyways, first appearance of the Smurfs. This one here is another one that geeks me out. There was 250 of these printed. This came out in 1963. This came out like, I don't know, 3 months after Amazing Spider-Man #1 came out. And so in less than a year before Amazing Fantasy. So put that in perspective. That's when this book came out. And this was self-published by the Texas Trio. And it's the first appearance of Dr. Weird, the Astral Man. I don't think these are their first appearances, but it's probably the first or second, the Defender and the Changeling. But put this in perspective. This was hand-drawn, hand-printed before there were any printers, computers, typewriters, any of, electric typewriters, any of that stuff. And they did this themselves. It's hand stapled, and back then too, there was no conventions, no comic conventions. So they'd hand these out at Comic Cons or whatever the case is. They had to go out and figure out ways to move these books themselves. And so fanzines, self-published fanzines, rarely made it past issue #1. This Star-Studded Comics made it 18 issues. And just a fantastic piece of history here. So, Star-Studded Comics #1. All right, here are a couple of my Fireside books. I own most of the Fireside books. Done by Simon & Schuster's with Stan Lee's permission. These retold origins of the Marvel superheroes, and back in the 70s, that was about the only way you could really find out how things first appearances and whatnot. And so this is Marvel Origins of Marvel Comics. And Bring On the Bad Guys, just a couple of great, I think this is Romita cover. Yeah, it's Romita. I don't remember who did the cover on this one, but yeah, just a couple of fantastic Fireside books. Some of the original Marvel graphic novels that I touched on earlier. The #5, God Loves, Man Kills, First Striker. New Mutants. This is Marvel graphic novel #4, first appearance of the New Mutants. I need to upgrade this. There's some smudges going on right there, but it's a first print. I'm happy with that. These are a couple of those Europe, UK books. Love these covers. I own a lot of this Action Force, 150 issues. I shouldn't say I own a lot. I maybe own 10 of them, so about a fifth of them. Here's a couple of Snake Eyes covers that I just love. This is issue number 37 and issue number 11. The Hulk magazine. This is issue number 13. The significance of this is the first time there's a backup story in here of Moon Knight, and this is the first time that Bill Sienkiewicz did anything on Moon Knight, was in this book right here. Excuse me. Foom, number 15. First, Miss Marvel and a couple other characters are in this book. Captain Britain and Howard the Duck. Legion of Monsters, just a beautiful Neil Adams cover here. Absolutely just love this book here. Vampire Tales number 2, I believe this is. First appearance of Satana. Right there, new Satana. XXL, this is Doom's one of his favorites, and I think Seeking Near Mint. This is the Eminem Punisher crossover comic. It's included in this magazine here. Very, very coveted. Savage Tales #1, first appearance of the Man-Thing. And another Conan magazine I just absolutely love the cover of. I got to shout out K-Man Comics on this. This is a Boris Vallejo, I can never pronounce that last name, cover. This has been homaged several times. Witchblade, the Uncanny X-Men. Tales of the Zombie, first appearance of iZombie. Oops. Getting close to the end, guys. Some of the Marvel Comics Super Specials. This is #1. This is Kiss. This was printed with Kiss's blood. They all took some blood and a vial of their blood and mixed it in with the ink. That was a big deal. Marvel Preview presents the Punisher. This is his 4th appearance, I believe, and it's his first origin story. Oh, it's his first solo Punisher story. I'm sorry. And Marvel Preview #4. This is the first appearance of Star-Lord. I wanted to show this book here. This is #11, I believe. Yep. This is the 2nd appearance of Star-Lord. But what makes this even more interesting is it's this. I hope you can see this. Yeah. You see how this has got this written right here and it doesn't on this one? This was the first printings of it, and they did not have the rights to use his name, Robert Heinlein, and he protested it, so they reprinted it and did not have the little splurb there. So I believe this one is more coveted than this one. All right, Marvel Preview #7, first appearance of Rocket Raccoon. My Captain Britain collection. I own a ton of Captain Britain UK stuff. This is #1, first appearance of Captain Britain. Make sure that this has the mask in it right here, which mine does. And this is #8, first appearance of Betsy Braddock, who becomes Psylocke. And here is Betsy Braddock as Captain Britain. And Captain Britain #13. This is volume 2, though. Epic Illustrated #3, first appearance of, oh my gosh, first appearance of Dreadstar. And here is Deadly Hands of Kung Fu #16, I believe this is. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous Bruce Lee cover. #14, absolutely love this cover. First appearance of the Daughters of the Dragon. And here is one of my all-time favorite covers. This is a Ramita cover, I believe. Yeah. And this is the Spectacular Spider-Man. It came out before the Spectacular Spider-Man comic, and it ran 2 issues. This is issue #2, which I absolutely love this cover with the Green Goblin. And then here's issue #1 of that. All right. I'll pause you here. And we're going to round this off with some Treasuries. I own well over 100 Treasuries, and I've done a showcase of my Treasuries. So if you want to look at that, just go back to my videos. But this is the Batman Treasury, which reprints all of the Ra's al Ghul appearances. Absolutely stunning Neil Adams wraparound cover to this. Absolutely love this book. You can have